All right, so we can just breeze what we did through last week. Again, it's all about requirements. We're still talking about requirements. Hopefully, we are able to wrap up today concerning the conversations around requirements. Okay, so again, this paper tells you or talks to you about um all what a BA needs to know about requirements. Basically, why do you need a requirement? What is a requirement? Who uses who uses a requirement? When do you need to write a requirement? And we established all the reasons why you need to write a requirement. If you remember last week, what was the role I compared to the BA role? What role?
Like the server?
Yeah, at a restaurant. Okay,
Yeah.
that's essentially what I compared to a BA role. And that's all you need to know to understand what a BA does. Again, as a server, your obligation is to take a list of order from your customers and take it back to um, the kitchen staff to basically prepare this meal. And then you bring the information or you bring the food back to your customers by saying this is what you ordered, here and here and here is what you ordered, and they're all good to go. Okay. As for the BA, all you're doing is again, you're taking gathering requirements from your stakeholders. Your stakeholders can be customers, can be users, can be anybody, right, involved in the outcome of the process of what you're working on, and basically gather those requirements from them. Go back to your in-house team, to your technical team, and then your development team can essentially build this thing out according to the requirements that you've gathered, right? And then you can always take it back to them and show them, and then they can sign off on and close the project. Okay, essentially, that's what I compared this to. Okay, and we basically analyzed the types of requirements that you need to have, which is basically technical and non-technical. And then we broke that down to different categories of those, and then general principles of writing requirements. Okay. Um, just give me one moment. So today, this was where we stopped last week. General principles in writing a requirements document. Um,
We stop
okay,
at part one,
part one. Yeah.
that
Okay.
application.
Yeah, we basically explained this and we stopped at part one. Okay. All right. So we're still going to go over like application overview again. And we're going to be talking about application overview, sections of a requirement document. We finished part one last week. Not last week, last week. And we're going to be talking about the functional requirement itself, which is the juice of everything. And then I was going to say appendices, but
Is that not how
appendix,
it's pronounced? Oh,
no.
appendix. Oh, appendix is the like
The disease.
appendicitis now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we already spoke about the application overview, like how to write a requirement, how to basically journal a requirement. We spoke about that, and then we spoke about what it needs to contain. So today we'll finish this up, and then who needs what, summary of purpose and usage of the section of the requirements, how to get others to read it. We might just breeze through that, reflecting changes in the requirement, which is very, very important because there are sometimes they will need to make tweaks in the requirements, and then also documenting requests for enhancements, and also just tracing the requirements. And hopefully, we conclude on today's um, stuff about requirements. Okay, so page 10. I'm sorry, just give me one moment. So is that correct? We can just go to page 10 from here. Okay, so again, just to breeze through, this is basically talking about how to write a requirement, if you remember. Okay. We spoke about writing a requirement like a letter. You must have your buffer, like the first paragraph is like your buffer, giving an introduction to what you do. And then the body is basically what the requirement is itself. And then you have the concluding part. And that's how basically, that's just standard practice. Like I said, different organizations have different ways that they essentially journal and write out their requirements, but it's just general standard practice that you document it in such a way that it's concise and it's easy to read for people. So you have your overview, application overview, you have the requirements, and then you can have the closing and concluding parts, and that essentially makes up what your requirements is all about. Okay. All right. So, like I said, I'll just breeze through this. Basically, you want to talk about the applications overview. Again, underline the word, the big picture of what this is supposed to be doing. So, if you're working on a feature such as a video call, okay, you're working in a team whereby they're trying to develop a video call for an app. Overall, big picture of what the video call is about or what the application is about. That's what you're essentially documenting here. The objectives of the video call, what it's going to do, how it's going to influence the business, and all that. Why are we doing this? Which is the most important question. What's the purpose? Okay. And then we're talking about the business process. Okay. In this section, you're basically talking about how this is going to affect the overall business. How will it change the system? How will it integrate to each other? Okay, is the chat going to integrate into the video call? Is the video call going to integrate to the chat? That's what you're basically talking about. Depending on the organization you work with, some organizations might have video call outside of the app of where the chat is. So if you want to chat to somebody, you go to a different place. If you want to video call somebody, you go to another place. Okay. So depending on the organization that you work with, there are different business processes is what I'm trying to say. Okay. So you're also talking about the users and their roles, who is using what, who is also using this, and your overview, okay? Who is going to be using it, who is going to be responsible for this. You can see the input, who is going to be accountable, who's going to be responsible in whether using or building this is what you're also putting there. So you're putting your user's role, okay? A user's role is related to the specific business objective, and basically that's what you're putting here. Okay. Interaction with the systems, same thing. Essentially, not the same thing with business process. Business process is looking at things from the business point of view. Okay. So how is this video call going to essentially boost user base? Like how is it going to boost the amount of users that we have? How is going live or how is going live, introducing going live on Instagram basically going to boost the amount of people that have used Instagram from a business point of view? Now the operations integrating with systems is okay, how do we integrate this UI? That's when things like UI UX come in, things like engineering come in. How do we integrate this into our systems? Okay. So that's what this part is talking about. Of course, you're going to be talking to your engineering team, getting more knowledge concerning, okay, getting more knowledge concerning what systems need to be in place for this thing to be able to happen and how this is going to basically relate to one another. Okay, it's best to add a verbal description of how your application fits into like everything, so you can draw like a whole big picture and how the application fits into everything. So someone that sees that image, when I mean draw the picture, you can just it's just basically a sketch of, I give you an example, video call. You can put users on one side, draw example of users, draw productivity level, and just show people as opposed to just writing documents in such a way that anybody that sees that picture, again, a picture says more than 1,000 words, they can automatically understand what you're trying to do. Something that they can just look at and they can explain the entire process of how the systems are going to integrate with each other. Okay. All right, you're also talking about replacement of legacy systems. What is this replacing? Is this replacing something else? Is this replacing? It could be legacy. When they say legacy, again, legacies is history, historical. Replacing historical systems. Is it replacing? Sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes on a project, you're working newly on a project that has not been formed before. Okay.
A question. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. A question I wanted to ask is in this
Mhm.
situation where it's like replacement of legacies, you said just now that sometimes it's not on anything or it hasn't, it's a new this thing. Well, my question is, how is it new? Like, I thought everything started with something.
Okay, so I give you an example now. You're working in SpaceX. Do you know what the company SpaceX?
Yeah, it's not this Elon Musk.
Yeah,
satellite something.
yeah, you're working in SpaceX and you're essentially building a rocket that's supposed to land on Mars. Before Elon Musk, I think they only tried it once or twice, the Apollo project, but they've
Yeah,
not been able to. No, they've been able to land on the moon, they've been able to land on different planets, but not Mars at the time.
Mars.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, not Mars at the time. And another phenomenal thing Elon Musk did was he made sure those rockets were reusable.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, so the reusable is the new thing in
Yeah.
this
So
situation.
as
Oh,
regards the reusable thing, there was no country, not even organization, no country has been able to build a rocket that would go
and
to
come back.
space and come back and then you can reuse it.
Use
There
it.
was there
Oh,
was there was no country. So in that case, that's a new system,
mm,
something that has not been done before. Do you
okay.
get what I'm trying to say? So of
Yeah.
course it always comes from something. So there are situations whereby there's no legacy system to replace, but you're building something new, completely
Mm,
new. All right. So I think that answers the question, correct?
yeah. Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
All right. So production rollout considerations. And I mean, you should see those videos of when those rockets are landing in the middle of the ocean. Oh my
Serious.
God. It's okay. Let's see if we can show a video. Hold on. Just give me one moment.
Oh, that Wi-Fi thing that he did is not part of SpaceX. Like
Yeah,
that one that like
yeah.
you can go everywhere with something like that. Oh, I didn't even know he has gone this far with the project. Oh,
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen.
Love these. Obsessed. Sweet. So run to Shoppers and check out all the top picks.
Can you see the screen?
yeah.
2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Is cold nitrogen gas, which helps with attitude control.
Look at it.
Big one. London leg deployed.
That was as
So you see,
It
you
went
see.
and he came back.
Yep.
That's one large step for something. Or something for something.
What'd you say?
Yeah. No, I was
What'd you?
saying that. Yeah. I was saying that quote that that first guy said on Mars. One big step for man, something for mankind.
Right. So exactly. So those are new legacies. Those that non-existing systems. That's not even a legacy system. It's something that's never been done by any
Done
country,
before.
any
Yeah.
government before has been able to pull that off in such a way that you launch something into Mars and astronauts are able to come back using the same rockets. It's never been done. All right. So again, production rollout considerations. Okay. So you're just adding more information as regards what the production rollout is going to be. Is this going to be a separate document? So in addition, either this section or the appendix section in the requirements document is a separate document should have discussions of populating the system's data for rollout. How are you going to launch? Is basically what this is saying. Where are you going to launch to what platform? What's the expected data that you're supposed to get? And what's the transaction volume that you're supposed to get? So if you're working in a fintech company, production rollout section can have things like, okay, if you're able to onboard, currently our system is able to onboard 10,000 clients or customers. If you're able to onboard 1 million people, we can literally go from a transaction volume of 1 billion per day to a trillion naira per day. Okay, so that's your production rollout considerations, and all that is what you're imputing in your production rollout sections. All right, there also has to be a part of terminology in the sense that not a lot of people are reading who are reading this know the industry jargon. An accountant can pick up your requirement document and excuse me, I want to know what you're talking about. Okay. So you must have a section for terminologies as well. So things like business process mapping, BMP, or BPM rather, or BRD. You say something like BRD and they're like BRD. What's a BRD? But that's the business requirement document. Or they say something like, or you say something like use just one technical lingo and they're like, I don't understand. So all those lingos, you need to put them here. Okay. So we're going to be moving on to the second part of the
And
document,
in
which
that, sorry,
Mhm.
and in this lingo, like terminology, this thing, it's not just BA terms now. You also consider the industry, right? Like some
Yes,
terminology.
yes,
Okay.
in the industry that you're working in as well.
Yeah.
I give an
Okay.
example. If you are working in a tech consulting organization, and you guys are working in an agricultural field, and they're using something like NPK, do you know what NPK is?
I don't know what MPK is.
Exactly. NPK is fertilizer, NPK 15, right?
Oh,
So say for example, they say, oh, they want a dashboard where they can onboard NPK, the amount of NPK they have in warehouse. You need to put those things in terminology. So in such a way that anybody that is reading it can go and check the terminologies and say, okay, NPK means something and it means fertilizer.
I
All
understand.
right. Okay. So your functional requirements. Okay. This part of the document states a detailed and precise manner of what the application will do. On different projects, you've used two ways of expressing the functional requirements with the help of the use case or free text. I'm going to explain those in this paper. For the focus of this use case approach, at the end of the paper, some books will be listed, blah, blah, blah. All right, statement of functionality. Okay, so you need to state precisely what your application will do, what this product is going to do. And when I mean precise, there's something being different from being precise and being explanatory. Explanatory is A, B, C. Explain why A is A, explain why B is B, and explain why C is C. And then you now explain, oh, according to the general rules of thumb, B has to come after A, C has to come after B. That's me explaining. But you being precise about the information is A, B, C. You have no time to waste. Explain it as quickly and as shortly as possible. Because please do remember that the people that are going to be reading this document don't want this document to be too voluminous. If you're
Yeah.
repeating the same thing over and over again, it's going to mess everything up because you're not precise. The document, you're not repeating the same thing twice. Although you can expatiate by saying, oh, this is what also this means. So if they're wanting a new system that has not been done before, you can take different examples from different industries and say, okay, this is the equivalent to this in this industry. This is equivalent to that in this industry. I give you an example. You're trying to build a project. Say, for example, this rocket thing that has not been built before, right?
Yeah.
You can essentially say that, oh, it's like the first time they discovered the airplane humans were about to fly. This is the same type of project as well. When the Wright brothers discovered the first aeroplane and then they commercialized it. So you're just giving examples that this is where we are, this is the situation of things, but you're not going on how X happened to Y, how Y happened to, you're precise about your information.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says this part more than anything else is the requirement document spells out your contract with your customers. Okay, the application will include all functions listed here and will not include any of the function not listed. All the requirements that you've gotten, again, how did we get to this document? This document is how to document things. There's a notepad that you already have.
Yeah.
If you remember, from you taking observations, granting interviews, all those things are your notepads.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where you are sorting and filtering, and you're doing your requirement analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're adding stuff that, okay, this is where you take out, go read those notepads, go read those interviews, go watch those videos, and you're basically taking out stuff and putting them into your requirement documents.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're essentially just taking stuff and say, okay, A and B and C ordered for the same thing. Here is what they ordered for. C and D and E ordered for the same thing. Not you just dumping a pile of your notepads into, no, you're taking stuff and you're adding it. Okay. So the
Yeah.
application will include all the functions listed here, blah, blah, blah. This section, you must use a precise language as you can, since developers will use it to code their applications. Again, most of the developers that we have in the Western world are either Chinese or Indian people. Again, they like the culture they are from, they are very precise. Don't beat around the bush. They don't want stuff to be cumbersome. Again, those guys are statisticians, they're mathematicians, they are not literature people. They want to see steps, 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 steps. They love fewer words, more steps, more pictures. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this section, you must be precise with your language and very concise. When reviewing this part with the other people, you should pay extreme attention to removing any possibility of ambiguous interpretation of any of the no comparisons. This cup is supposed to hold water and help me drink water. That's all. That's the function of the cup.
Yeah.
Hold water and help me drink the water. In fact, yeah, hold water, I can drink the water myself. Essentially, just hold water. That's the function of the, just make sure it's not leaking. That's the functional requirement of this cup.
Yeah.
Functional requirement of this pen is make sure that this pen writes.
Yeah.
How you do it, I don't know. Make sure there's an ink there. Make sure there is a place where I can put my hand and grip. So let's take a look at this pen right now. You've interviewed students that use this pen the most, and they told you that, oh, I think we want a pen that has very good ink. When I mean very good ink, the quality of the ink is very good. We want something that is smooth in the hand in the sense that this ball point needs to be smooth. We want something that is as good and nice grip. We also want something that is light, that feels light. Those are requirements.
Yeah.
When you're writing your requirements, they want a ballpoint that is smooth. They want a syringe with a longer ink. They want a quality ink, and they want something that is light, nothing more.
Yeah. Hello. You are cracking. It is cracking.
You saying, oh yeah, can you hear me?
No.
Hello?
Why? Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I can.
Yeah. I
All
just
right.
missed what you said.
All right. So imagine they say you're saying, oh yeah, when Tolani and when Shegun were explaining this, you're putting that in your requirement document. They said, oh, they want something very, very slippery, something that once they write is not the mark, the ink doesn't fade off, something that is very, very smooth in the hand in such a way that when they hold all these things is in your requirement too. And then they're saying that the syringe must be very long, although they did not mention the meters there, but they're saying it should be very long, sha. But yeah, they also say they want something light as a feather.
It's not making any sense.
Straight to the point. S- Quality ink, longer syringe, lighter. They want a grip and they want a ballpoint that is very smooth. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. So if your application has several distinct categories of users, you can list your requirements by user category. Again, you can then say, oh, Simi said they want a ballpoint. Andrew said they want a grip. Matthew said he wants a longer syringe that can take more ink. Someone else sells something. So this is what this part is saying here, that your application has to have several distinct categories of users and who said what. So this person wants this person wants, it can be in a tabular format. User categories may be defined in terms of users by job title. Okay, Matthew is clerk manager. He said he wants a slippery pen. The frequency which they will use the system. Whether Matthew, how often does he use? Whether it's heavy or depending on the organization you are, you can have. They can tell you to put this on a scale of 1 to 5, maybe 4 or 1 being the least, 5 being the most. Do you get?
Yeah.
So again, this document is just standard practice. It's not, you can go to another organization and the formats could be different, but the rudiments are the same.
Yeah.
The purpose for which they will use the system, operational decision, as long as each category of users use the system in its own way, structuring the requirements based on user category will make sense. Okay. If your application deals with several kinds of real world objects, you can list the requirements by objects. So this is just, if it's requirements by, say for example, it's not individuals that are dealing with it now, it's requirements by scenarios. You can list the requirements by scenarios. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
One of the most common approaches is to list the requirements by feature. For example, features of word processing applications are file management, formatting, editing. So features of requirements for this pen could be writing.
Yes.
You can just put writing and then pen is being designed under writing. Okay. All right. IIE, which is a body for business analysis, has developed some templates for structuring a requirements document. You can find more ideas there. I reference the document at the end of this paper. Okay. All right. So you've spoken about your requirements. Again, precise. Do, boom. That's it. Okay. All right. The next thing you want to talk about is your security, the security. Some people are confused. Some people confuse security with pertinence. Okay. People may tell you that so and so and so should not be able to access the document or the file or use the pen or whatever it is. But it says when they really mean that so and so and so has no need to use this, what they're talking about is breach of security. Okay, which is what you need to put in your document, the security. I give you an example. If you're bringing up requirements for this now, what do you think the security, who and we should not be able to use this pen?
A pen, maybe babies or something.
Right, because they can injure themselves.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So in your requirement as well, I give you an example. Take it back to the servers thing. So someone has ordered an alcoholic drink and you also have a minor there. So you don't want to mix your orders up in such a way that you go and serve the minor the alcohol.
Alcohol. Yeah.
Same thing with your requirements as well. If you're building an interface for chat, not anybody should be able to access that chat unless they have the authorization to. And that's what you want to build as well. Do you get? So you want to say the security part as well, that okay, so and so would not be able to use the application. These are the people that will have access. These are people that will not have access. Obviously, these two interpretations can make a difference to the design of your application. So be sure you understand what the real security concerns are. I give an example of the Uber app.
Yeah.
So say, for example, you're designing, people have asked you that we want something, we want to be able to order a ride, we want to be able to do this, we want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
As a rider that you are, you don't want your driver to see your personal information.
As a rider, you want your driver.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't want your driver to see your personal information in the sense
Yeah.
that they shouldn't see your last name. They just want to see your first name and where you're going to. In fact, when you're going to, should be determined when you enter into the car
Yeah.
and they start the trip. It shouldn't be beforehand where they start the trip before you enter the car, just so they don't know where you're going to already and then they can take you somewhere else. that decision should be able to make on the spot. That, okay, you're going here. Immediately you enter, they start the trip, then the location appears.
Yeah.
That's security. All right. So you're talking about auditing as well. Auditing usually means being able to tell who made changes, when they made change, when the changes were made, and what they are. Okay. So auditing as well is like, say for example, the last scene on WhatsApp. That last scene feature.
Okay.
Who made changes? When last did you come online? Auditing is basically just transparency because someone else can come into the interface and change something. They should be able to log that, oh, this person and so person made this change. Depending on what you're working with, auditing might not be necessary. Again, this is just the standard practice, okay, for software. Because software can be very cumbersome. A lot of people can use the software. It should be able to have and it should be able to accumulate people's logs, people that used it. Okay.
Yeah.
Administration and stroke customization of the app. Okay. The ability to modify the application to perform any administrative functions such as creating a new user. This one is just if you're working
Yeah.
precisely for a software. Okay. Reporting. Requirements reporting generally specifies what information is presented in the report, how frequently the reports are produced, and to whom they are. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you build a product, there has to be reporting. Reporting to who? Are you reporting to your product manager? Are you reporting to your team? How often is that reporting happening? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Like reporting the progress or what?
Yes, the progress. What I mean progress as well, whether progress while building and progress after building, there has to be that reporting there as well. Reporting requirements generally specifies what information is being presented in the report. Okay, you're reporting the requirements in the sense that this and this was what they asked for. This and this were things that we're able to achieve. And how often are you presenting that information?
Okay, that's what will be here.
Yes, you're
Yes.
reporting it.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, you can then go on to scope.
This is still under application overview, right?
Nope. Functional. We've
Oh,
gotten to part.
functional. Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, okay.
All right. Excuse me. All right. So the scope. You should include this section if your development will consist of multiple phases. Okay. As an alternative to this section, you can note the planned project phase for each feature in the functional statement section. Usually, it's better to include a separate scope section for easy reference and communication. I would explain that. Whether or not you use a separate scope section, you may want to prepare a section or a separate document that will list in detail what's in scope for the initial release. Okay. So now, when they say scope, essentially what scope means is criteria. What this thing is supposed to do and what it's not supposed to do. The scope of the scope essentially is old water, be durable enough to be able to withstand pressure. Say for example, when I hit it like this, it doesn't like spoil or it
Right.
doesn't break or crack.
Yeah.
Those are part of things that are in scope. Now, something that could be out of scope could be, oh, I want the under to be red. Is it a must?
No.
Those are out of scope. Now, out of scope could be, I want my water to still be cold. It's a cup, it's not a freezer or a fridge.
Yeah.
So you must be able to know what is in scope and what is out of scope in your requirement. In the sense that, take it back to the idea of the servers that we use. You must be able to know the things again that are in scope and out of scope. There are some orders that they will give to you. That order cannot be done. They want a meat, a cheetah's meat or a lion's meat. That's
Yeah.
out of scope. We only serve lamb in this restaurant and cow meat.
Yeah.
There's no way we can prepare that. Okay. You should include this section if your development will consist of multiple phases. Okay. As an alternative to this section, you cannot note the planned project phase. So different phases. So the way I mentioned those scopes, you can put them in different phases
Yeah.
of development. Okay. So this is where you're talking about what is in scope and what is out of scope. Misunderstanding about scope, when there is time to address them, you may want to write a section like this for all subsequent major releases of your application. So there are some things that, again, in scope and out of scope. These things become more practical when you're working on a project, and this terminology becomes more, you become more familiar with it. I give you an example. Your customer, not customer, like a stakeholder could say something to you that, oh, we want your laptop to be able to rival, the sound system should be able to rival JBL's best speakers. There's some things that are out of scope. Like, this is beyond what you're asking for. You need this thing to work, and for people to hear the sound. How loud the sound is, nobody knows. This is not supposed to be a mini stereo. Of course, you won't see it like that. Okay. You, of course, then evaluate the performance. You should be very specific. Use numeric measures of performance to measure performance, stating the application should open, how quickly should the file open, how swiftly should it open, what's the lead time, what's the loading time, do you want it to take seconds? I give you an example of this pen, for example. When you're saying performance, what can you think of performance in this pen? Like, what can you say as regards performance?
Like if it's a new pen, immediately you strike, like you want to write, ink comes up. That should be
Yes.
performance.
Remember there are some pens where you buy like this, and then
Right.
you start to do like this
Yeah.
because it's a new pen,
Yeah.
right? And there's some ones too that you've used in the old, though, but you still come back and do it because so
Some of the
that's
ink stuff will float away.
right, right.
Yeah.
So that's when you want to put in your performance that we don't want our customers to be able to be doing their pens like this before they essentially use the pen.
Is
We
it?
don't want a
Yeah.
situation whereby they are writing on different surfaces to scratch the ballpoint. Even if you've not used this in 3 months, the moment you write, in less than 3 drags, the ink should come out.
Yeah.
That's a performance. So think about performance in softwares. You're building a software in such a way that if I click on the app, the latest time your customers can tell you that, oh, when we open your app or when we open our app, it takes about 15 seconds and our customers are closing the app because it's taking too much time to load.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So this is where you want to state it that, oh, we want this app to open in less than 5 seconds. We want to be able to transfer money in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. Usability, you need to include this section only if there are any overarching usability goals and considerations rather. For this point, I really don't see. For example, speed of navigation of the UI may be such a goal, such a goal, in the sense that people should be able to navigate one pum 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 and say, okay, yes, this is where I sign up, this is where I log in, this is where I order stuff, this is where I reply, or this is where I give my feedback or text customer support. That's just under usability though. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Concurrency. Instead of having a separate section, you may choose to include the concurrency requirements for each feature in the statement of functionality. To be honest, I really
What's
don't know what this
concurrent?
is. Just give me one moment. Again, it's just standard practice. All right, it says concurrency is multiple things happening at the same time while this is running. It says instead of having a separate section, you must choose to include the concurrency of requirements. So there are some things that need to happen for something to run. Concurrency statement just says, okay, this and this and this needs to happen for this to be able to run efficiently all at the same time. They're all concurrently being run. So
Um,
a concurrency part could be for WhatsApp video call that you're trying to design is the phone has to be running concurrently. The mobile data has to be on,
Yeah.
and the app needs to be open at the same time concurrently for this thing to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's concurrency. All right, so again, that's essentially the juice of it. You've spoken about your requirements, what the precise requirements needs to be. You've also spoken about things such as auditing, security, and the likes, in such a
Yeah.
way that your requirements, the body of your requirement itself is juicy enough for people to understand. Depending on the project you're working on, this might take a page or two or 20 pages, not 20 pages of requirements, but maybe like 3 pages, just breaking
Yeah.
things down very specifically. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Mhm.
We're going to be going to the appendices.
Yeah.
Appendix. All right. Okay. Supporting and background information, maybe. So, first of all, appendix is supporting information. Supporting.
Yeah.
That's what appendix is. There's some things that your technical guys will want to look at and be like, oh, we need to be able to find out what this is. That's where like they can find it out. Supporting documents, that's when you're not going to shall. So give or take, think about your resume and your cover letter. Your appendix is your cover letter in such a way that
Yeah.
what you've done is more detailed. They take a glance at your resume, 10, 15 seconds. They're like, oh yeah, I think we like him or her. Then with your cover letter, they can now go and read in detail what you've done.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to pause here and take our first break. Okay. And then when
Yeah.
we come back, we can just go ahead and finish up with the requirements. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll see you in 30 minutes.
Yeah. See you in 30 minutes.
Hi, Mary, I'm back.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me one moment, please.
Yeah.
So, did you have any questions before we went ahead?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to be talking about appendix, okay? And that's where we are going to be talking about, which is the last and concluding part of the requirement document, okay?
Yeah.
So again, support and background information may be operated to include as appendix things like
What?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
All right, things like results of user survey, examples of problems to be solved by the application. This is when you had your, or in the case of XYZ, and then you reference this.
Yeah.
What I was trying, what I was trying to say was basically in the case of the rocket, this
Yes.
is where you now build a case for what you're trying to do. That okay, since kids are able to launch little rockets and they can still launch it as long as they want, we should be able to copy that type of thing. So this is where you add other documents in
Yes.
to be able to support and back your case. Okay, and that's what it is. So things like again user surveys, examples of problems, and all those type of things, more examples of the application. So documents like how the documentation of other applications, this document that you're saying, other applications such as WhatsApp and all those things that have been done before. So you want to look at their documentation process as well. So you can add this to, okay, this is documentation process for Telegram, for Snapchat, for WhatsApp, just so your programmers and your coders can read out, they can see these things in case they need more information.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what this part says. All right. And that's
Yes.
the appendix is. Okay. So we're going to be talking about who needs what, summary of the purpose and usage of this section of the requirements document. Okay. Just give me one moment. All right. The requirement analyst or business analyst and the development project leader use all the section of the document. For the sake of brevity, I omitted those two roles for the listed. So what it means is that there's a part where it's supposed to show like a table of people that are supposed to use this and supposed to use what part of the document. This table just basically shows it again. So from the overview, you are stating who is using the overview page. The section talks about the objectives. The purpose, you're saying, okay, states the commonly accepted objectives of the project. Is it required? Yes. Do you understand again the objective session when we explained it?
Yes.
Okay, so you're just talking about the purpose of it. Is it required for you to have an overview? Yes, it's required. Project rules, who use it, or everybody uses it. Include this in the summary. Yes, you're also including this in the summary as an overview. When you're summarizing, you're including it. This table just shows, I won't say it's like a racy type of table in such a way that you're just showing the sections of who needs to use what particular part of the document. I give you an example. This requirement could be 10 pages long. Your coders don't want to read through that 10 page before they eventually find where they're supposed to know what to do. In this page, you can just
Oh.
come here and look at, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Okay, business process, okay, this and this and this. And then they can always just go back there,
Oh, rather than reading the entire thing.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you described objectives, business process, user roles and responsibilities, interactions with different systems, replacement of legacy systems, production. So the moment their name comes out to your development team, you can see them. They go to user
Yes.
roles and responsibility. They are quickly able to go back to that part and see that, okay, this is what this guy is talking about here. This is what concerns us, not everything
Yes.
else. Sometimes they don't even need to know the overall objective. Some cases they don't
Yeah.
need to, because the overall objective might be too ambiguous. They're not like, I'm not about to read 2 pages of overall objective. The business process might be like, I really don't care. I just need to know what the app does. Like, think of these guys as geeky, very geeky.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, you're essentially just thinking of how to make this document as, this is just a snapshot of each heading. Who is it for? Is it required? And is there a summary for it? So
Yeah.
interactions with other systems. Who is going to be reading the development team? It describes how your application relates to other systems. Okay, legacy systems, all those things, technology, terminology. So you've done something like this for the overview part. Okay, so this can come before you start to detail it.
Yeah.
When you're writing your requirement documents, this table can come first before you then document each, or before you then explain what objectives is, what the business process is, what user roles and responsibility is, interactions and vice, and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Just so
okay.
people are able to quickly read through and breeze through, boom, and they're able to know what to read essentially.
Actually, yeah.
Right, functional requirements as well, same thing. Statement of functionality, scope, performance, usability, concurrence describes any specific concurrency requirements. So everybody knows that, okay, this and this and this is what they need to look at. And once their role has been mentioned here, they can always just go back and say, okay, yes, I'm involved in this. Okay, yes, I'm involved in this part. Let me go and read it in detail. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the best requirement document is worth noting if it's not read by all appropriate parties. Again, the best requirements document is worth nothing if it's not read by all appropriate parties. There's some people that they will not want to read your requirement, but it's best believed that everybody has to read your requirement just so that everybody is on the same page. Even if it's getting your manager to make sure that your development team reads your requirements. Some of them might complain to you that what you wrote there might be too ambiguous, it's too much. Why are you writing this much? And they don't want to read your document. You want to make it as swift to read, as easy to read, and very, very good information is there, and everybody's able to run and fly with whatever they have in the requirement document. Okay. So it
Yeah.
says you've gone through all the troubles and wrote the requirement document. No doubt you'll be very gracious. Moreover, you know what needs to be done. Okay. You must get everybody to be able to read this. Failure to have a common understanding of the requirements can doom your project. This is where things like your judge sessions start to break out because not a lot of people have read your requirement documents. Remember what we spoke about judge sessions?
Yes.
Okay. Where issues concerning the objectives and vision of the project is not being discussed entirely. These are
Yeah.
these are the issues. This is where they start to come up. But once everybody has orientated themselves with their requirements and familiarized themselves with their requirements, or with their documents rather, they are good most of the time. Okay. Of course, while you are writing the document, you discuss parts of it with others and show them some experts. You are planning on showing them excerpts and drafts, weren't you? Yet comes a time when a lot of people might bite the bullet and read a document which by now is a couple of dozens of pages long. A section earlier in the paper summarized which groups of people needs to read each section. Each of some of the techniques that may help you to get people to read what is use written summaries, not maybe 3 or 4 lines. Okay. stand-up presentations. Use this in a stand-up presentations. Okay. Say for example, you're having a meeting with your client, you can quickly say, "Oh yeah, I need to show you guys the requirement document. It's used. You're gonna like it." Just essentially entice people. Use document walkthroughs or more formal documentation. I think this thing alone is good to have it in your requirements in such a way that a lot of people are able to see what concerns them. For me, I don't read a book cover to cover. I read the what's it called now, table of contents, and I look at the parts that are interesting, and those are the chapters I'm going to read. That's how I read books. So
Okay.
people might want to read cover to cover, but I really don't have that patience to be reading cover to cover because I believe that there are some things that are jargons and I don't need to be reading that part. Okay. And it's not every book I do that to though. So just give me one moment. All right. Focus on business experts. He or she really needs to read, digest it all, give it to her in small chunks. The people that are basically, so this is when your requirement is done, like when you're done documenting, when you're taking it
Yeah.
back, okay, you're giving it to the people that have the major say to look at it and say, okay, look, has this and this and this been able to follow the criteria that you requested for? If yes, good, we are good to go. And if the CEO is saying yes on something, it can there's obviously a chance that the other guys are supposed to say yes on it and say, okay, she already passed through this requirement and they said it was good. Let's just take a look at it just to make sure all the T's and I's are crossed. Some things happen that way. And these things are
Yeah.
not textbook. There are some scenarios whereby nobody will want to read your requirement. They are not cast in stone in the sense that if they are not done like this, then the job cannot progress. But just make sure you have signatures of people in your requirements, just so you don't get to the future and they're like, this is not what we actually to build.
Yeah.
Okay. With some management, you need to make sure they digest the following things. First, elicit their comments on how the project fulfills the business objectives. So, say for example, in your document, you can put things like, oh, I spoke to Mary Aligbe, managing director of this. She said this and this. Just so when people ask like, where do you get these comments from? You're not stuck. You're quoting people in your requirements. According to this person,
Yeah.
according to this person, this is what they said. And then they can even look at it themselves. No, I didn't say that. I meant this. Okay.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So it says some people use system prototypes as a way to present requirements. This may work in some cases, but I prefer to use prototypes as a mechanism to elicit requirements. So prototypes are like samples of what you're trying to do. Okay. Basically samples of what you're trying to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. You need to wage this information to disseminate campaigns several times, requirement sign off, representation of the quite fully featured on screen prototype, system testing, deployment. Requirement sign off again, like we said, is you've taken the first set of requirements that you get, you took it back to your technology or development team. They told you, yes, this thing can be built. And then you sort and filter, bring it back to these guys, your stakeholders. They sign off and say, yes, this is what we actually build. And then you show them you go back to your team, show them a prototype. This is how presenting them a prototype. Is this and this, does this work for you? Do you like this UI? Do you like this UX? Is this design fine? All that meeting, you're going with them back and forth. Once that stage is done, then you can build out. Once this building stage is over, then the system is being tested according to things that it's required of it to do. Okay, is there salt in this food? Yes. Is there Maggi? Is good. Is this food dry enough? Good. Is it art, is it ready? Good. Those are your testing. You're testing for this, you're testing for that according to what's in your requirements. They said they want to be able to do this. Does this do that? Yes. Okay, good. They said they will want to be able to do this. Does this next stage do that? Yes, good. You're testing. And after you're done testing, you show it to them and then you can deploy. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. It says reflecting changes in requirements. Okay. In a properly run project, there are times whereby the requirements are signed off by the development manager and the customer, but let not fool you. The requirements will continue to change after sign off. Like I said, someone else might bring something. There are situations whereby you go to the restaurant and order while they are making something for you. You order another thing. We say, "Oh, can you tell them to make sure that the meat is not too spicy?" Okay, there are scenarios where that happens as well. The management can come to you and say, "Oh yeah, we did our meeting last week and we figured out that the entire interface should be blue, and this was designed in green before."
Yeah.
All right, reflecting on changes in the requirements. Okay, you must continue to update the document as the requirements evolve. So the scope to the objectives to the business process, maybe during the time whereby you're talking about the business process, between the then and now, the business has merged to another company. Does the business process still stay the same? No. Let's say
No.
there wasn't a legacy system before, and two companies have merged, and there's now a legacy system in the sense that there's an older company or there's an older system that is being used. Now you have a legacy system. You need to go and put that in your requirement.
Okay. So my question, yeah, is that do you now go to each of the sections rather, and go and start putting it there, or like there'll be a separate document for that changes or something like that?
So typically, you can go to each and every section. If it does affect each and every section, you can go ahead and change that because it's an update. You can't change A and you know that B is outdated and you decide not to change B. You have to change everything. These things are
Yeah.
not, since there is already a working framework, it's just one or two lines of changes upon project.
Yeah. Okay. But the people had already signed off on the other one before. So
Yes,
what will now happen to this one that you're changing? You
you
go and
can
meet them
also,
to sign
yes,
again.
yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
See, like I said, your job is not to decide what they said. Your job is to document what they are trying to say and show it to them with that. Is this what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it's not your say. It's like you're just documenting what they're saying and giving it back to them that this is what you said. True or false? True. Okay, good. Sign, please. Good. Next.
Yeah.
All right. Recording the changes also documents them for everyone to see. You can always point to this document when someone begins to wonder why is his favorite feature not there, or why did we take this thing out, or in case your manager is asking you, or maybe one accountant is asking you from wherever, and they're saying that why did we take this feature out? You can go back to your requirement document and say, oh, version 6 of this document, we already took out that feature in version 4. A typical way is like I
Oh,
said, these things are not cast in stone. Typically, in the organization I used to work before when I was a strategy analyst, we used to do something like rename the document. So if this document is you see the way this document is named, requirements doc.ch.rtf. Do you see that?
yes.
Top top left here. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So in the organization that we used to work before, they'll tell you that put this as required docs CH01 save. If you want to make changes or anything, you need to duplicate this document
Duplicate it.
and
Yeah.
rename it 02
Oh,
in such a way that if they are asking for something, you can always say, oh yeah, this was in version 1 of
very
it.
one. Oh, that makes sense.
Do you understand? So in such a way that
Yeah.
nobody's asking you, oh, when do we take this out? Oh, we need to bring it back in, and then you can't find it again.
Yeah.
That example that I just gave to you cannot be in textbooks, but it's just normal work
Like,
instinct. Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of these things, they are just textbook. There are some things that you get into the work environment and it's like, like you have to think at your feet, on your feet rather.
Yeah.
So renaming those documents, and then at the end of the day, you can have 15 different versions, but it helps you trace that, oh, in the most previous version, in the most previous version, in the most previous version, or the recently updated document says that this and this and that. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, you should use description in deciding how detailed the tracking should be. Remember the least work principle. Okay, least work principle again says the less you write, the more people understand. So you want to write something that is not too cumbersome for people to be able to understand. So say for example, you can write, oh, update on this was updated in document 14 in such a way that when someone goes to look for document 14, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. At the minimum, you should keep an archive of versions of the document. Okay, it says here versions. Okay, they know what they are doing. Versions of the document that were distributed to a wide audience. For example, at least milestones listed in the previous action, which is what I just explained, by the way. So this
Yeah.
is what we even used to do in our previous environment, but it's a best practice that you keep versions. So even if you want to change like a whole paragraph, it's advisable that you go and duplicate the document and just create it to version 2.
Yeah.
And then you can always have a place little notes and says, okay, this was what we changed here. Okay.
Yeah.
Documenting requests for enhancement. There comes a time when the requirements for the initial release of your applications are frozen. Usually it happens after the system acceptance test, which is the last chance for the users to lobby for some changes to be introduced in an upcoming release. I'm going to explain that to you. Just give me one moment. Okay. All right. At this time, you need to begin maintaining the list of required enhancements. Below is a template for tracking requests for enhancements. There comes a time where the requirements for the initial release of your applications are frozen. Usually happens after the requirement acceptance test, which is the last chance for the users to lobby for some changes to be introduced in the upcoming release. Okay. So there comes a time whereby changes can't, I won't say can't be made anymore, but you've gone too far for changes to be made. I give you an example. If you're preparing noodles and you're saying you don't want the water to be too much in the noodles, that should have come way when we were preparing this, before we started preparing and knowing the number of water to use to prepare the noodles, as opposed to me trying to spice the noodles up. The noodles is already in its boiling stage and you're saying you don't want too much water. That period in time is not too, it's not the
It
best.
hasn't gone. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So you want a process whereby people are not bringing enhancement after the team has built stuff.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond that stage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So at this time, you need to begin maintaining the list of required enhancements. Place a template for that. So the date the enhancement was made, requested by who? Date on January 1st, 2024. Mary said we should enhance the speed of our computer. It was Mary that said it, requested by Mary. The note, oh, she said this and she said something else. She also spoke about the performance of this, and this priority is high level because it helps our customers be able to move faster than the speed of light. Release number or status. Has this been released? Yes. Has this not been released? No. Are we working on this? So you can put complete, in progress, not started here.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how to
Yeah.
basically document requests for enhancement.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of people come to you, oh, we want this to be able to do this, we want this to be able to do that. You want to keep a list,
Yeah.
okay, of after this modification, we're working on this. After this modification, we're working on this in such a way that they can see it. So essentially, you might have 3 modifications here or 3 enhancements programs here, right? And one might be completed, one might be in progress, one might be not started.
Yeah.
Okay. If the enhancements are very substantial, you may consider writing a full-fledged requirement document for the new release. Again, if the enhancement is substantial, what that means is that if it's a lot of enhancements, remember the difference between update and upgrade. Update is just tiny, tiny little changes.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a lot of changes, that's when it becomes an upgrade.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So what it's saying here is if the enhancements are very substantial, you may consider writing a full document as opposed to you writing just one line here. You can decide
Yeah.
and now decide writing a full page or a full document concerning the requirements or the enhancements rather. That's what it's saying. All right. In addition to documenting major enhancement, I strongly recommend using an off-the-shelf defect tracking system for catalogs, bugs, and minor enhancements as soon as your application begins the QA process. We're still going to get to the QA process, so it's all these things that we're going to talk about. Okay. Tracing requirements as well. Okay. Why do you need to trace your requirements? I'm asking a question.
Okay. Oh, why do I need to trace my requirements? I think to know like if like there's an error or there's something that happens, where is it stemming from basically? Like if something happens, like where is it coming from? That's why you trace requirements.
Good. A requirement is being traced just so you can know, again, it's for error. Where did this go wrong? Where did we go wrong with this? Basically, that's what
Yeah.
you need to trace requirements for. Because this thing it's a what's it called now? It's a application. A lot of things can go wrong, and you should be able to trace it back to, oh, it's when we made this change. That was when X and X and this
Things
happened.
started happening. Yeah.
All right, especially for the following, this is why we need to trace requirements. A requirement to its source, backward tracing. So you went from A to B to C to D. You must be able to trace it back from D to C to B to A.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think of different modification stages that you've gone through. It's a chain. Maybe there was one part whereby we changed a particular feature, but we are already in stage 8, modification 8, and we're already implementing, and we're finding out that why is this app not working? But it might actually be on modification 3 that we made an example, we made an error, and we found out that, oh, we should not have done this or designed this way. So that's what we call backwards testing, just so we are tracing things backwards. Okay, this thing works, D works, C works. Okay, it was B, we made the error. Okay. So
Yes.
another reason why is because we need to be able to trace from one requirement to another. Okay, so we moved from A to B to C to D. A requirement to design documents, code, user documentation, or project plan. We need to be able to know that this, like again, we want to be able to trace that this was when, it was when we were working on this project, that was when we made this requirement. I'll give you an example. In the restaurant example that I always use, someone could come back 3 days and say that they had a food poisoning. How do you trace that?
The case of the food poisoning.
Yes, they had a food poisoning. They were in your restaurant 3 days ago and they had a food poisoning. Now, think about this. 200 people have visited your restaurant and 200 different meals have been made. How do you trace it to that particular meal?
Maybe like this, like the differences in the meals. I don't know, like the ingredients. I don't know.
That's why you need a requirement. You need an order tracing order system in such a way that if somebody comes in, they're able to say, okay, a week later, if they come back and say this food wasn't nice, you're able to trace it back to that particular day. How was this food prepared? What
Or
ingredients
who
were used?
prepared it?
Who prepared it?
Oh,
That's why you need
okay.
to trace stuff. So think of this in the BA scenario. So 1 month later, the app can crash. You should be able to trace it back to, oh, okay, what are the modifications that we made? Do
Yeah.
you understand what I'm trying to say? And that's why you need a requirement. So in the restaurant case, things like maybe the dates, the person who prepared it, the ingredient they used, how long was this prepared for, all those things can come into play then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Backward tracing allows you to document the source of each requirement. For example, you can note that a specific feature was requested by a certain user or a group of people that, oh, you said on this particular day, sir, that this was what you wanted to order and this was what we made. Okay. Creating a requirement traceability can help you evaluate. So there's also a requirement traceability metrics where you can trace these things. It's also
Yeah.
like that racing metrics where you can also look. We're still going to talk about that. If someone requests a change in a requirement A, you must know that requirement A is related to requirement B, which is on turn requirement to requirement C, D, and E. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
All right, forward tracing, of course, is, I explained that, to be able to know, oh, how this ties to what, how this ties to, do you get, how this ties to whatever you're designing or you're building. Okay. All right. Yep. This has come to the end of the document, and we've concluded our conversation around requirements today. And
Yeah.
we are some minutes past to our mark. But just so you have any questions for today, do you have any questions that you want me to quickly touch on or touch base with?
Well, I don't have any question. I just wanted to scroll down to where it says forward something.
You have this
Like
document to
below.
help you know.
I had that even reminds me. I wanted to ask. The
Should
thing
I
is
stop the
saying I
recording?
need. You
Access?
can.
Okay, let
Yeah.
me
So I sent you like stuff.